Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is marketing swag. Putting your business info on any type of swag is a fun way to advertise. Examples of swag can be pens, sticky notes, screen cleaning cloths, that's one of my favorites, car magnets, t-shirts, and more. I love me a funny t-shirt. Anyone can throw their boring logo and website on a shirt, but to maximize attention, get creative and make it something worth reading or looking at. One of my favorite shirts I've made had an outline of a hammer and it said, "This is not a drill. Jillific Homes, service you deserve, people you trust." And let me tell you, we always got a good laugh from that t-shirt. If you are just starting out with swag, a great place to begin is with pens. They are relatively inexpensive and can change hands faster than any other swag. A friend of mine keeps bundles of pens in his car with "We buy houses as is" and his phone number. Every time he goes into a restaurant, he leaves a bundle of 15 to 20 pens with his server, who is generally very appreciative. Having your business name on swag also builds your credibility. When you are evaluating a property, you should wear some type of company t-shirt or hat so your business appears well established. A car magnet can also be displayed when arriving at a new client's home. It puts that prospective seller at ease, providing comfort knowing they are working with professionals. Lastly, we like to give some swag gifts to our private money lenders, contractors, tenants, and more. We have done umbrellas, coffee mugs, tote bags, but the all-time favorite were coolers. Those soft-sided coolers get a lot more use than some would expect, and having your business name and website advertised at social gatherings is awesome. So, get creative and style up some swag. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us a total badass. I can't wait for this conversation. We have with us Pratiti Pathak, and she is coming to us from Philadelphia area. So welcome to the show, Pratiti.
Yay!
Thank
you, Jen. So good to finally be here with you.
We met each other through what's called Podmax, which is all about podcasting, and you get on these shows, and you were being interviewed on several other shows. I was interviewed on other shows, but we kept seeing each other. I'm like, she is really stinking cool. And you are this badass realtor as well. So I couldn't wait to get you on the show. So give us a quick background about Pratiti.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on this show. I have been waiting a long time to connect with you. Like you said, we've crossed paths now at Podmax, 3-4 months ago. So it's been a while. My background is I'm originally from the aerospace industry, but way back in 90s, I started a construction company with my husband at the time. And at the time, I did not know how to do construction, but I definitely knew business, and I learned how to do the roofing, siding, brickwork, block work. Today, I can finish concrete by myself if the pad's not too big. I don't allow men to spackle for me. I don't trust them. But one thing that's been really great is not that this has been really great, but when I divorced in 2007, I started my own painting business, which was pretty good timing for just a quick hot moment because the market had already kind of started hitting us, but already being in that space, I knew a lot of really great builders and contractors that started using me exclusively. I got to work in Allen Iverson's house. I got to work in Aaron McKee's house, his sister's house. I've painted at the Philly Fanatics and found out there was more than one, which I didn't know that. But so I got to be in some really cool spaces and do some really amazing flips with people. And that's how I really got turned on to real estate investment and just real estate in general. I've always loved connection and connecting with people and creating and building relationships. The one thing I realized, it really fed my creative outlet with seeing just beautiful transformations of properties and different spaces. And I love that part of it. And fast forwarding, unfortunately, in 2009, I lost my son, who is my only child. He was 17 at the time. And I have grown tremendously through that process. It was a very difficult time for me and completely derailed me out of my life altogether. And then in 2012, while we were still in the middle of the down market, as you know, Jen, real estate was not doing well. And of course, the market was desperate for real estate agents. So they were offering real estate classes for very inexpensive, to say in the least, practically for free. And so I said yes. I always wanted to do that, and I was in the position to be able to do that. It just made sense. And as soon as I became a realtor, I actually got offered a position as a loan processor for a mortgage broker. And I was it made complete sense to take that opportunity, because then I felt like I would know everything there was to know about real estate and investment, buying, selling, renovating, like everything. I could help my clients through the entire process, to be like a one-stop shop. So it was just an awesome opportunity. And so that's pretty much my background today. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams and a business and life coach.
And, and first I have to say, I'm so sorry for the loss of your son. And I think you had mentioned before, or I heard this about you, that's what kind of got you into the whole life coaching thing. So we'll get back to real estate in a second here, but how did life coaching come into your life, and then you turn around and now you are able to help others as a life coach, a business coach? So how did you get into that?
Yeah. So just to backtrack for one moment, is when I first graduated high school and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Like I said, I've always been about human connection and creative relationships. And I think I've really just been always fascinated with our brain and why we do what we do. And, criminal justice was a part of it. But I originally went to school for criminal justice and psychology. So that's always been in the back of my head as well. And when this life coaching came out in the open, and I was like, what is the life coaching all about? And I think a little bit of the difference between life coaching and psychology or psychiatry, counseling, or therapy in some way is that kind of keeps you focused on the past and your past experiences. And if you notice, sometimes you'll hear somebody say that they've been in therapy for 10 years for something. It's like, why would you ever need to be in therapy for 10 years? It's obviously not helping.
Right, exactly.
Coaching really focuses on our current thoughts and creating our future. So it really focuses on how you're choosing to tell your story to yourself, number one, because every thought that we're having about our past or our future is our current thought about our past or future. So after going through the grief and loss of my son, I had to do a lot of my own mental work. And even prior to that, growing up as an Indian girl in a American culture from the age 2. I've been in this country since I was 2 years old. The two different cultures were very different. And I found myself struggling a lot with trying to fit into two different cultures, ultimately not really fitting into either. I became really good at people pleasing. I became really good at bullying myself through, just all the self-loathing of how I'm not good enough. And, just grew up a life of like telling myself a shitty story about my childhood. And when I came across life coaching to find out that I could actually choose my own thoughts and retell my story was amazing and so freeing. You know what I mean? It was very liberating to know that I didn't have to define myself from my past experiences, and that I could actually allow myself to be the person that I actually was somebody that actually grew and evolved through those experiences, and that I didn't have to feel sorry for myself about them. So that's probably something that's changed. And through being a business owner and being a solo entrepreneur and knowing the challenges of owning your own business and the failures that we've gone through and how we've learned and grown and evolved in our businesses through them, it made sense to incorporate the life coaching into all of the sales training and coaching that I had gone through, because like I mentioned to you, I'm a Keller Williams agent, and Keller Williams across the board in sales is like number one in training and coaching in sales, regardless of it's real estate or not. And so incorporating those two concepts of knowing how to generate business and how to create the best customer experience, and also with the life coaching to be able to deal with all the brain drama that goes along with owning your own business, was a game changer, which is what made my Results by Design coaching program really very different than the rest.
Well, I was immediately drawn to you, and just I was like, I've got to have her on my show, because I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a certified life coach as well. I've never used it ever, but it was one of those situations where the Rona hit and I was stuck at home, and just like, let me do as many online courses as I can do. So I did get my life coach certification. So I do know how important it is. But what I love especially about you is you are not a real estate investor, yet you have done all the other spokes of the wheel around real estate. So I want to go back into a little bit about that, and let's put the focus on the house you are currently living in, because this is a great story. It was a farmhouse, but it was bank owned and flooded for a year and a half. So tell us all about it.
I love my property. It is an old farmhouse. It was originally a horse farm, and it was a part of 40 acres. And then over the years, it had been divided. And then in 98, they put a little street down the bottom, and a builder bought the property and subdivided it so that there's a little street at the bottom with 7 houses. And then we have become like a flag lot up at the top. So I own 1 acre and a third. I'm surrounded by 3.5 acres of open space, which is like a small wooded area, which is just so pretty. And I always say my house has like the best happy hour view, because there's a beautiful sunset, there's deer in the yard, and a cocktail in your hand. It's just the best thing. But
I'm on my way. I'm getting in the car now.
Get in the car. So my property, it was interesting. I was currently at the time, I was looking for some flips because I wanted to invest in some renovation properties, and we came across this particular property. It was a bank-owned property, and it was a water damage, mold damage. Apparently, it either didn't get winterized properly or at all. The pipes had burst throughout the house, and the bank didn't even know it until the water company was like, thousands of gallons of water is dumping into this house. What's going on? And from my understanding, it used to be a finished basement. They took out like 2,700 square feet out of the basement of finished materials And they didn't even know. But I mean, it was just filled with water for like a year and a half or more. And so everything in the house was warped. Beautiful random width hardwood red oak select floors that were like 4, 6, and 8 inch floors. As you know, they're gorgeous, and they look like speed bumps. You know what I mean? All the crown molding, all the walls were cedar planks.
Oh, wow.
And there was a combination of cedar plank, drywall, and plaster. Beautiful molding in the living room. I'll have to take you for a tour someday, even if it's a virtual tour, but it's gorgeous. And when we came in, everything was warped, mold like crazy. And you had to wear an ET hazmat suit, which I had indents in my face for a long time with the respirator mask on me. But the renovation process was about 8 months, 3 months longer than I really wanted it to be, just because of the timing that we bought it. But let me just back up. When we found this property, it was about 40 minutes away from where we currently lived. And when we called up the realtor, he's like, hey, listen, there's already been 7 bids. We're pretty much closing it down. We're shutting it down and going to make our decision. And we were like, please, 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 can we just go take a look at it? So there was already 7 bids in. They were already shutting it down. And we're going to look at it like practically almost it's turning dark. We got a lantern. And my boyfriend is like, let me go check out the basement. I'm like, no, don't go in the basement. It's scary. We can barely see it. I'm like, yes, let's get it. I love it. Like, you could see how gorgeous this house could be. And it was very charming and beautiful, even through seeing it completely warped and damaged. And so last minute, we put our offer in along with 7 other offers, and you couldn't finance it because it had to be owner occupied. You couldn't flip it. You had to owner occupy it for at least a year, because they did not want somebody to come in and just flip it. They wanted whoever was going to work on this home to keep the integrity of the farmhouse, so my boyfriend was like, I got a funny feeling that we're not going to get it. I'm like, really? Because I totally think we're going to get it. I totally think we're going to get it. And like a half an hour later, it was crazy, because he called me. He was just like, we got it. And it was ridiculous. But it was the year 2013 December that we settled, and that was the winter that we had like ice storm after ice storm after ice storm. So it was very challenging to, you couldn't start on any other remediation until you handled the mold situation. So the first thing that had to happen was all of the walls, the insulation, everything had to come out of the house that was warped and damaged and wasn't going to be staying. And then you had to section off each and every room that you had to work on section by section. And with mold remediation, one of the key components to being successful is that it has to be, the area has to be a certain temperature. It has to be, the heat has to be there. So to be in the dead of winter with lots of ice storms, and to crank the heat up enough to keep it that temperature for a period of time for the mold. So there was a lot of spraying and scrubbing and HEPA vacuuming and fogging. And
you did this yourself.
Yeah, we did it ourselves.
Because
it
is expensive as hell for some of these companies to come out there and do the mold remediation. So you tell the listeners how you figured out how to do it yourself.
So we actually, we called a few different companies, and I think because definitely not saying that we didn't trust a company to do the work, but it was very important to us that whatever products were being used in the house were more like natural products. We're not really, we don't love chemicals. I'll just say that. And so, a lot of companies want to just go in and use bleach. Bleach is very good for like topical, but it doesn't penetrate through wood and things like that. Like, it doesn't really get into the depth of the materials. So that's going to be a very temporary thing, and bleach just is not healthy. So we called a few companies, and funny enough, we actually found a company that had already come out and give a bid to the bank. And it was a $25,000 bid to do the work. And I was just like, what would you be doing for 25,000? And they used all natural products and everything like that. So I was like, well, so tell me your process. And so they told us their whole process on what they do. I was just like, well, thank you very much. And then we went ahead and we purchased those products. And then we hired guys to, do the physical work with us. And at the time, like I said, I was actually working for a mortgage company and working as a realtor, and I lived 40 minutes away. And just to go even one step further, I was actually still doing paint jobs because I really loved painting. So I have always been like I will run circles around any male contractor. Like, you just can't, I am a work like crazy kind of person. And I was working 10 hours a day for this mortgage company, Monday through Thursday, so I could paint Friday through Sunday and still do real estate and all that. But now I was getting done at 5 o'clock, driving 40 minutes, putting a hazmat suit on and a respirator mask, and working physical, remediation project until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, driving back to my apartment at the time. But so we worked our butts off. And once we got all of the mold remediated and had the whole house tested again, we also were dealing with lead paint because the house was built in 65. And, these projects were so awesome at the same time because I learned so much through doing this work myself for myself. Whereas before I had done a lot of work for other people with renovation and building rooms and additions and things like that. But to do it for yourself was so different because it's so easy for me to help design a bathroom or a basement or kitchen for you. But then to have to pick things for myself and redesign walls and things like that. Like I said, my father's an architect. He was retired. And him and I had worked on projects before, pretty large projects, as us being the builders and him being the architect. Not really a great love affair there to be working on a project with your father. I can just, we'll leave it at that. We weren't throwing hugs and kisses at each other back then, but it was a lot of fun working on this project. And my kitchen today is absolutely stunning. We didn't like redesign a whole lot of things, but just the few changes we made super great sense. I loved keeping the integrity of the hardware and the antique finishes. I have those double Dutch doors that are made for horses. I mean, they're just gorgeous. Not the most energy efficient things. You got to have really good storm doors on there, but to keep that. But it's been a really beautiful project. The house is gorgeous. And
what's the square footage?
So it is just under 3,000 square feet. I think it's like 27 something, just under 2,800 square feet. It's a Cape Cod.
Oh,
We have a first floor master.
love it.
And the layout of the bathroom was kind of interesting. They even had like a little pedestal sink in there. I'm like, why would you have a pedestal sink? So we moved the toilet over, took this big hot tub out of there and put in like a 3x5 stand-up double shower in there. And I joke around, I say, like I have a little strip in between the tile that has what I call my Fleetwood Mac tile because it has stone, glass, and metal all in the tile. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, that's Fleetwood Mac right there.
I love it. And I so understand what you're talking about by designing your own home. My husband and I, we recently purchased a historic home. And I mean, I can put fixtures and pick them out and pick the tile because I know what sells. But when you're doing it for yourself, you're like, oh my goodness, it has just taken over my brain. I dream about it at night. What the hell am I going to put in this
Yeah.
happen? Yeah. So I totally get that.
And I think the reason that we go crazy over it is because when I'm designing it for someone else, I'm just working in the container of their finances and what their budget is. When I'm working for mine, it's almost like the budget doesn't exist. I'm like, listen, this is what we're going to do. And they're like, Pratiti. I'm like, we weren't going to talk about it. We were just going to do it.
Well, my husband does tell me there's a budget. I am kind of with you though, like,
Yeah.
there's no budget on this.
And not that I don't want there to be a budget, but certain things you're just like, no, no, no. It's got to happen.
Yep,
It's gotta
exactly.
happen.
All right. So you have done the contractor side of things. You've run that type of business. You then got into real estate as a realtor, but then you became a loan processor. So you have all these different spokes to the wheel. So how has that made you better overall?
Oh, I think it is a much more relaxed feeling to be able to walk through a property, whether it's for your seller or your buyer. And something I really like to do is I like to get with my people, even when they're a year away from buying or selling, because I want to be able, if you're a buyer, and you're like, well, I'm not ready for another year. Well, let's sit down right now, because that allows me to help them put a goal, date, and an action plan into place, because sometimes the difference between a dream and a goal is writing it down and having the action steps in place, because we can say that we'd like to buy a house in a year. Sometimes, you know, so many times actually I'll be talking to somebody who doesn't think that they're ready for another year, but they actually are ready now. Or somebody who thinks that they're ready now and like, no, actually you aren't, or they just don't know. So what has helped me with all of these different areas that I've been, areas that I've worked in, is being able to help somebody from like the very first stage of thinking about it or considering buying or selling a house or investing in a property, because I love real estate investing, to actually following through with that plan. And what does that really look like? So you're interested in buying a house. What does that house look like? Is it 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms? Is it a duplex? What does that look like to you? What area is that in? What school district is that in? Because so many times they're like, yeah, we want to buy a house in this area. And, they have an idea of the house, but they have no idea what that house costs. So let's go on and let's look at your house right now. What does that look like out there in the market? Okay, well, you thought it was going to be 250. It's actually 400. So
Wow.
now how does that change something? Or do you want to consider a different area? Like, it at least gives them a place to start and focus. And same thing for selling a house. So like, I want to go in a year, 2 years, even 3 years before you're ready to sell, because I want to come in, I want to walk through your house. And as a contractor and as a realtor and as somebody who's done renovation and know what it costs to either do it yourself, what materials cost, or to hire somebody to do it, I want to be able to walk through and say, do this, don't do this, but do it this way. It'll be more cost effective. Staging, packing, all of those things. I want to be able to tell you everything that you need to do to get your house ready, so that you're not doing it at the last minute. You're like, hey, we want to sell our house in the next few months, but now here's a laundry list of things that you should do in order to get the most money for your home, because everybody's got the same exact goal. It's the same goal. It never changes. You want to get the most for your house for the least amount of time. Period.
Absolutely.
It doesn't veer from that answer. So the earlier you can talk to a realtor and tell them what your thoughts are, the more time you have to prepare yourself to put yourself in the best position, regardless of what your goal is.
So I love how you want to talk to the buyer and the seller, but I have a question. Will you share a badassery bestowment to my investor listeners? What would you tell my investors when dealing with realtors, when dealing with buyers, etc. So give us a badassery bestowment realtor version.
So I would say, as a realtor, I love working with investors, but one of the things that I really want to impress upon an investor, especially, just a real quick side note, when I first moved out to this area that I'm in now, I'm about an hour away from where I was originally from for like 35 years. So when I came out here, I didn't have the same core people to work with. So I had to find new contractors and new people to work with. And so I started a meetup group, it was called Buying, Selling, and Investing in Real Estate. And I started attracting a lot of people that would hand me a business card and say, we'd like to flip houses. I'm like, that's fantastic. How many have you flipped so far? They're like, none. I'm like, so what do you do for work that's making you, driving you towards this? They're like, I'm a UPS driver. I'm like, that's fantastic. Right. So they don't know anything about it, but they watch a lot of HGTV. And so one of the things that I am absolutely insane crazy about when I'm working with investors, and especially if you guys are new out there, for those of you who are listening that want to get into investment or want to flip a property, if you yourself do not know how to do the work, make sure that you are hiring people who are licensed contractors, who know their trade really, really well, and that you can get references, not just a piece of paper that says, yes, Johnny did good work at my house. Go to that person's house and see Johnny's work. And if they're not willing to show you their work in person, that might be something to think about. And if you are somebody who does the work yourself, do not cut corners. It does not benefit you long term. It may be something that you get away with for that house in that moment for that project, but it is not the way to sustain yourself long term and be successful, because you're not just trying to flip a property and get money. What you're trying to do is build a reputation for yourself. You're trying to build a name for yourself so that I know, as a realtor, when I come across this person's property that they've done the work in, I know that I am putting my name as a realtor to a good product that you're putting out there on the market, and that all kinds of problems aren't going to arise for the next person that has to buy it. And then I have to deal with a whole list of items that have to be now readdressed. Like, I don't want to work with somebody that isn't taking pride in their work, because I'm a realtor that takes pride in my work, and I only want to take on work with somebody who cares about their work as well. So that's one thing that I would really that I would impress upon that more than anything else, is make sure the work that you're doing is quality work, whether it's from you or the person you're hiring.
I think that's a perfect badassery bestowment. Thank you for your perspective of working with investors. And just to tag on to that, when you are working with an investor that you know the high quality of work, you can also, that reputation can be burned really quickly when you start finding that they are cutting corners, and you're going to be sharing that information as well and saying, ooh, watch out for properties by this person or whatever. And because it spreads like hotcakes. So I appreciate your perspective on that. And that's so important for the listeners to hear. So you are such a badass, Pratiti. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. The second half of the podcast is what makes you a badass, which is clear. So I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B. What is a book that has made a huge difference in your life?
Well, I lie a lot when I say that I love to read books, because I don't. I spend a lot of time in my vehicle, as you can imagine. So listening to my Audible is something I absolutely would never give up. And I listened to a lot of really great books coming from the Keller Williams space. Of course, The One Thing is amazing because it is all it is all about time blocking and managing yourself within time. And I love that concept so much because as a life coach, as a matter of fact, in my monthly program right now, we're doing managing your time and your mind, because time is just a construct of your mind. It's not really that we're managing time, right? Because time just is. We're managing ourselves within time. So I would highly recommend The One Thing, because what you always want to be doing is dialing it back to what is the one thing that I can be doing right now, such by doing it would eliminate or make everything else easier. So that's one that I would totally recommend.
I love it. And yes, agree 1,000%. But before we go on to the first A, can we touch base on your program really quick? I love that concept about time. So tell the listeners what type of coaching you do, how that works, how they can find you, all that fun stuff.
Yes. So I am a real estate agent with Keller Williams. So you can always find me. I'm on all the social media platforms. So if you need somebody to help you with real estate or you have any real estate questions, I have no problem answering anybody's questions. Pratiti@kw.com is an email. Pratiti.kwrealty.com is my website. My coaching program is Results by Design is my business. And originally, it started with a 6-week, which originally started as a simple 5-step coaching business program, which was, how do I put it? I incorporated all the pain points of being a solo entrepreneur. So I incorporated all the lead generation. That is a very normal thing. I incorporated all the social media marketing, the financial tracking, the budgeting, the planning. I incorporated our system that I use for an excellent customer experience. I am all about creating relationships. And one of the things that I emphasize is no matter what business you're in, you are in the business to create a relationship. Whether you're a contractor, you are not looking for a job, you are looking for a client for life. Whether you're a realtor, you're not looking for a transaction, you're looking for a client for life. So what I did with Results by Design is I incorporated all of my tools from my life coaching business to deal with all the brain drama that goes along with being in business for yourself, because it's a very big difference in coming from a W-2 paying income to going into business for yourself and just becoming a new, commission-based only. You get so overwhelmed with just focusing on all the 100 of different ways to generate leads. It's very easy to go into burnout phase when you're just trying to generate business, you're trying to market on social media. If you're in your 50s like me, I was not really techie, just to say. And, I had to hire an assistant to teach me and learn from. And here's what happens. I spent a lot of years saying, I suck at marketing on social media. Well, my brain can't go, which is a huge reason why sometimes affirmations don't work, because you can't go from I suck at something to I'm great at something. Your brain will shut you down because it's not a thought that your brain believes. So if you can't believe it to be true, it's just not going to work. So you have to be able to say a bridge thought. And this is where life coaching comes in. As you know, being a life coach is you have to tell yourself a thought that your brain can believe. And first of all, you need to understand and be okay with why you're thinking the way that you are right now in order to start changing it. So you can go from I had to go from I suck at social media marketing to I am learning how to market on social media. I am committed to learning something new. I am capable of learning. So something like that, of course, my brain can believe that and then it can work towards letting go of the thought that's not serving me and move on to the thought that is serving me. So that's all the tools that I incorporated in there. One of the things that I'm crazy about is systems. So when you talk about routines and calendaring and scheduling yourself, and maybe we could talk about this a little more down the line, but I am crazy about having the right systems in place, which may be one of your S's. So I don't want to.
That is my S.
Oh, okay. So I'm not going to go into
Put that one on
yeah.
hold. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And that is so true, because thoughts become things, and changing your mindset. And it's so important for anyone in business, whether you are a solo entrepreneur or working with a spouse or with a team of people, to have a coach that's going to move you to that next level. And that's just so important. So thank you for sharing that. Advice is the first A in badass. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That is so good. Jennifer, you ask such good questions and ones that have multiple answers. Here's, I'm going to share a piece of advice that really made a huge difference for me as a mother who was struggling in the grief of the loss of my son. And it was something that has really helped me, because it was a piece of advice that made a crazy difference for me then. And I saw how I could apply it to everything else in my life. And the advice was, don't let people should on you.
I love that.
So many times people would say, oh, you should do this, or you should do, everybody wanted to give advice coming from a place of not knowing, right? First of all, let me just say this to anybody in the world who's listening to this. Everything that we go through, everything that we do is unique to ourselves. And the reason that it's unique is because it's not like our situation nobody else has ever had, but our situation is unique because of our relationship with the situation, our relationship with the other people that may be involved in the situation, our relationship to ourselves, and how we choose to think about things, and our own judgments and our own experiences and all of that. And when people say things like, you shouldn't lose your son, a parent should never bury their child, a mother should never go through this should never happen, you should never be abused, listen, we are human beings experiencing life. And these things should happen. And we know that because they do happen. And they happen every day. And they happen to all of us. And at the end of our lives, we want to be able to say that, not necessarily that we've experienced all of the things, but that we were able to experience and embrace, more importantly, all of the experiences that came our way. Now, that does not mean that I wanted to experience losing my son. That doesn't mean that someday I want to experience being stabbed or shot or raped or whatever, but if those experiences should come my way, I hope that I am able to embrace them, process them in a healthy way that helps me get through it with the least amount of mental damage, if that makes sense. So the best piece of advice has probably been like, don't let people should on you. Do what is the healthiest thing for you to do. And if you feel like crying, you should, because there's no reason why you should not be experiencing the emotion of crying. It's so comforting, and it's one of the most loving things you can do for yourself, is feel sad when you want to feel sad, and feel happy when you feel happy, and don't let anybody influence that choice for you.
Such great advice. And I'm sure you reached somebody out there who is going through a situation like this, and that made all the difference in the world. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
The D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful?
So the most pivotal points of my life have to do with my son. As for most of us who are parents, most of our drive is our children. Sometimes, I'm not going to say all of us, but for me, I was a single mother for a very long time. My son and I were very, very close. We did a lot of life talk, and it was so important for me to express to my son that he did not have to put so much pressure on himself to pick something to do for the next 62 years of his life, which is absolutely insane to try to ask of a 15-year-old or a 17-year-old, because, they're just trying to figure out who they are, and they just, probably just got through having pimples. But, I think that what drives me the most is having lost my son. Everybody wants to know, what is your big why, which is what I think you are asking me in this question. I always want to be that example of what is possible that I wanted to be for my son. And just because he's not here, I will always be influencing him. And people think that, well, you really don't, it doesn't matter because he's not here. But listen, it does matter, because every time somebody walks by me and says, oh, look, there's Devin's mom. Yeah, it does make a difference, because I will always be Bevan's mom. And I always want to be that person that I was putting the example in front of him. Because if I stop doing that now, then that pretty much means that everything I was teaching him was a lie, and I didn't believe in any of that. In order for me to have been teaching it to him, I have to believe that that is what I should be doing. So I always want to be doing that. So that's really what drives me, is I can't wait to be exactly everything that I could be in this life, not because it's going to make me happier on the other side, because I have everything to be happy right now. It's because I can and I want to.
I think that's fantastic. I think it is so needed for people out there to hear that. And I don't even know what to say to it, because it's so beautifully stated, in that you are keeping his spirit alive, keeping him so present. And that is what continues to be your drive to this day.
To be honest, it continues to serve as an example for his peers that still call me, still offer to take me out for Mother's Day, my birthday. I mean, when you're influencing people, or let me just back up, you are always influencing people. Whether you're doing it in a positive way or a negative way is up to you.
That's right.
And you're influencing yourself.
That's so true. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. What is a goal you are currently working on?
I just created a monthly program for my life coaching, and my goal is I have a podcast of my own that I would like to be launching this year. And my goal with the podcast, with life coaching, with anything that I do really, is I really truly want to be an influencer of the 17-year-old to 30s, 40s, your age group, because it is the most difficult time of our lives, where we're just trying to figure out our mommy daddy issues and all of our childhood experiences, and trying to figure out what we want to do for our careers for the next 60 plus years. We're trying to find a mate, keep a mate, have a family. What does that look like? There's just so much pressure on us, and just so much overwhelming decisions to be made, that there's a lot of brain drama that goes on. Of course, we're going to make mistakes as young humans. So that is what I want to launch my podcast on my son's anniversary date this year, which is April 17th. And the most amazing part of it, which I just thought about recently, is my son was 17 at the time. and he will just be turning 30 actually
Oh,
this
wow.
year at the end of December. So it's exactly that demographics that I want to influence. And how perfect would it be to be able to launch my podcast this year on his anniversary,
And
which
what's
will
the
be 12
podcast?
years.
What's the podcast going to be called?
I believe that it's going to be called Results by Design.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for doing that. And podcasting has been such a great communication tool for me, and that not necessarily communication, but connecting tool and meeting people, especially during a pandemic. And but still, you know, because we were forced to go into this Zoom world and do everything virtual, I feel like it's just broadened it even further. So you're gonna love it. I can't wait to start listening to your show.
Thank you.
So
I
you
can't wait to
touch.
have you on my show.
I can't wait. So you touched briefly on systems, and that is the first S in badass. So what are systems you have in place to achieve success?
I love systems. And I will say it's, again, an area that I told myself really poor stories about on how I'm not good at systems. But I was failing to recognize how great I really am at certain systems. And one of the systems that I have the most emphasis on, and I want everybody to just listen up when I say this, it is imperative that you have really great morning routines. And the success to any morning routine is a really great nighttime routine, really great routines for your eating protocol, your physical body, implementing mental health, whether you do. So I have the first two phases of my coaching program is implementing all of the goals in all of the areas: personal, health, spiritual, business, and financial. You absolutely have to, if you're in my program, you have to have morning routine, you have to have evening routine, you have to incorporate some type of physical exercise for your body because you only have one. You have to implement some type of spiritual mental health routine, whether it's yoga, meditation, thought download, journaling, gratitude. I don't care what it is, but it has to be something, and it has to be a daily practice, because how you achieve goals in every area of your life is the compound effect of having really great daily practices. So that's the systems that I feel very strongly to.
I love that. I have a morning routine. I do Hal Elrod's Savers in the morning. Love
Mm-hmm.
him. And
We met him
I
on
know we
Podmax
did meet
together.
him. I was like, and then he said my name. I was like, oh my God, Hal Elrod just said my
Oh yeah,
name.
he was obsessed with you that
He
day.
what? So
Actually,
Hal, if you're listening, come on my show.
get
But
over
I
here.
do, yes, I do his Savers program, and I find when I go on vacation and I don't do it, I'm lost. Like it just sets your day up for success completely. So, yes, all about that. I do
Oh
have to
yeah.
learn about your evening routine though, because my evening routine is just kind of slowing my brain down. But
The evening routine is more about getting your lunch ready for the next day, getting your clothes. If you're a woman, it's not just your clothes, it's make sure you have your shoes, your jewelry, your makeup, whatever it is that you need to have, all your accessories. If you change pocketbooks every day, make sure these are things that are huge time savers, because when you're got your shit together the night before, it makes it so much easier the next day. It is really important that you show up 100% ready to go in the right focus and mindset from the first day, from the first hour of your day. And the eating part of it is key. You know, Jennifer, when you and I, we're out on the road a lot. Before you know it, if you don't have your eating stuff ready to go, you're doing drive-throughs and you're eating like shit, you feeling like shit, you're depleting your energy all day. You cannot sustain yourself long term with that being your protocol.
so
So
true.
yeah.
Great advice. All right, the last S in badass is success. And you are so successful. So, what does success mean to you?
Just being all that I can. I just want to know that if I wanted to, I could. It's not because I have to. When you tell yourself that you have to do something, and this is super important for my schedule and my calendar, my brain used to do backflips every time I'd look at my schedule. When you tell yourself you have to do something or you need to do something, it's almost like your mother is telling you to do it, as if somebody else put it on your schedule. But when you tell yourself, I want to do this, you show up with you create a whole different energy and emotion for yourself. And you're doing it because you love it. You're passionate about it. So for me, success is doing all of the things that I'm doing because I love them, because I'm passionate about it, because it brings so much pleasure to my heart. And I'm not doing it because I'm trying to create wealth, or I'm doing it just for pleasure. And success isn't just business and finance, folks. It is being successful as a human being in all the areas. If you're successful in your business, but your health is like shit, you are not successful. You have to be successful in your relationships, with yourself and with others, with your business, with your finances, with your health, with your mental health, all of that. So that's what it is to me.
Well, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. That's a mouthful. One more time, how can people, if they're interested in learning about your coaching, how can they find you? What's the website?
Resultsbydesigncoaching.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Pratiti. It has been so cool to finally sit down and talk with you. Enough of this Facebook stalking. I was like, let's get her on the show. I want to talk. And it has been an absolute pleasure. So that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.